So I know technically in your notes you see this in the day 2 area. So we're just going to bump this to the 3rd day so that way we're not getting too overloaded with the different rules. So today we're going to focus on our quotient rules. Again, notice to the left-hand side you see the rule, and on the right-hand side we're going to apply said rule. So this says if you have the same base that you will be subtracting your exponents. So I have the same base here of x. So the way I'll write this is x to the 3 minus 5. When I do this, I get x to the negative 2nd power. So now we're going to bring back the material that we learned yesterday. And what we learned yesterday says if I have a negative exponent, it moves its place in the fraction. So I'm going to take this whole term of x to the negative 2nd power and move it to the bottom. Now, some of you might be wondering why we put the 1 yesterday in the lesson. Well, technically, any number can be written over 1. So when I'm flipping the fraction, that's why I now have a 1 in top. The other way to think about it is if I move it to the bottom, well, I need something as a placeholder to represent the top value, and that's why we put a 1 there. The other rule we're going to talk about is when you have two different bases, and again, you just kind of distribute the exponent into both of them. So here for this problem, I have x to the 3rd and y to the 3rd. Now I can't go any further because the bases aren't the same, so I can't subtract the exponents. If you want to add another example, just so you have another one to look at, let's try xy to the negative 2nd power. So if I have xy to the negative 2nd power, I would start by saying x to the negative 2nd power and y to the negative 2nd power. And again, if I have negative exponents, it moves its place in the fraction. So the one that's in the top is going to move to the bottom, and the one that's in the bottom is going to move to the top. So my answer will become y squared over x squared. And notice when I rewrite it, they now have positive exponents. So there's just another example for your notes to add. Now we're going to take those same rules and we're going to apply it when I have a fractional exponent. So here I have my same base, so that matches. And I have 7 to the 3/2 minus 1/2. Again, in order to subtract fractions, we need common denominators, which I have here. So this will become 7 to the 2 over 2. And if you're not good with fractions, you're welcome to use the calculator. And I'll get 7 to the 1st power, which is just going to be 7. For the second one, I'm going to distribute this 1/3 power in. So this will become 8 to the 1/3 over 27 to the 1/3. And remember, raising something to the 1/3 power just means I'm taking the cube root of each number. So the cube root of 8 becomes 2, and the cube root of 27 becomes 3. And that is our final answer. So you have 4 practice problems to try. Letter D, that is a negative 1/2 power. So I know it's a little close on your paper, just know that is a negative 1/2 power for letter D. So again, I reorganized it. This now also says part 3, but I just added more to the 3rd part. So we're just going to, again, do a little bit more practice here. So in order to use my exponent rules, I need to write these both so that I can actually see an exponent. So this will become x to the 3/4 power. In the bottom, it'll become x to the 2/8 power. Now, one of these fractions will reduce, so we can reduce it. And when I do that, I'll get x to the 3/4 power over x to the 1/4 power. Now I have the same base, so I take my exponents and I subtract them. And when I subtract them, I will get x to the 2/4 power, which can reduce to be x to the 1/2 power. Now, because the directions say write your answer in radical form, I will convert it back to radical form. There's a 2 there and a 1 there. So the square root of x is the same thing as saying x to the 1/2 power. If you didn't have common denominators at this step, again, you would need to get common denominators. So that will happen in your practice problems where you will need to get common denominators first. Letter B, again, we're going to focus on the inside first. So I'm going to just focus on that part. In the top, I have x to the third power. And in the bottom, I'm going to rewrite this as y to the 1/2 power. Now I'm going to put parentheses around this. What I just wrote in parentheses is still underneath this cube root, which is also raised to the second power. So I'm going to come over here and I want to replace this cube root of something squared to a fractional exponent. So to do that, it will become 2/3. So again, that became your bottom number and that became your top number. By writing that fraction, I no longer need to put the radical. Now this goes back to that rule that we talked about earlier, that second rule where I have two bases and they're both being raised to an exponent, so I multiply the exponents in. So in the top, this will become, and I'll write this as 3/1 so you can see it, will become x to the 6/3. So again, we multiply our top numbers and we multiply our bottom numbers straight through top and bottom. We're going to do the same thing down here. So we multiply the tops. So that will be 1 times 2, which is 2, over 2 times 3, which will be 6. Now both of these can reduce, so we will reduce. This becomes a 2 in the numerator, and 2/6 reduces to be 1/3. So I'm now at x squared over y to the 1/3 power. Because the directions say write it in radical form, the bottom will go back to being a radical, so that will go back to being the cube root of y, but the numerator is no longer a radical. It is no longer a fraction. This is technically over 1, so there is no radical for that one. Your radicals only start with 2 and up. So you have 2 more practice problems to try. Again, a pop-up will come up on the video for you to input your answers.